Thank you. I am so honored to be here today, and I just want to tell you I am humbled to be the freshman senator from the state of Georgia. And I'm so proud of what AFP is doing in our state. In fact, I think we have a few Georgians in the crowd today. Look, you've heard I'm not a politician. I'm not running for office, so I can tell you like it is today. I'm on a mission, and you're going to hear it today very briefly. You're going to hear from some great people in the next few days, today and tomorrow. Our mission is to make one of them the next United States president. Look, I'm not a politician. I've never run for office before in my life, but I got convicted that if we don't turn the direction of our country around, it may be too late if we wait much longer. My story's not unique. You heard my mom and dad were public school teachers. I grew up working on our family farm. I worked my way through college. I ended up being fortunate enough to be a Fortune 500 CEO, the only one in the United States Senate today. But my story's not unique. It's why we're here. It's why I stood up and did this. I want that to be available for my kids and grandkids, and so do you. But I tell you, it's a miracle that I got through the political process. The political process is not set up for outsiders to be successful. From the money standpoint to the political insider standpoint, but I have a story that I tell, and I love to tell this story because it explains the mood of Georgia, and I think actually the mood of America today. It was in our primary back in May of 2014. I was going into a rally south of Atlanta, about 100 people in the back of a room. I've got a new stump speech, and I'm nervous. I'm not used to this, and I'm holding the door. I'm going in, I'm holding the door, and a little lady walks up. She looked like she might be in her 80s, about this tall. She had a cane. She stopped and she looked up at me and said, "I know who you are. You're running for the Senate." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "I just have one question of you. Have you ever run for office? You ever been elected anything? You ever done anything in Washington?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Well, you got my vote." And she trundles on in. I cannot tell you how many times I heard it. It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter what I wore. It didn't matter what I looked like. She knew that Washington was broken. My mission in life, now that I've gotten elected, is this, is to call out the crisis that we face in America today. We got here over the last 100 years. Yes, this president has doubled down on these liberal progressive policies, but we've been getting here for 100 years. Over the last 100 years, we've had 3 supermajorities, all Democrat supermajorities. The first gave us a New Deal. The second gave us a Great Society. And the third, gave us Dodd-Frank and Obamacare. Now look, I'm just a business guy, but I can put at the feet of those 3 supermajorities the majority of the responsibility for this financial catastrophe that we have right now today. And the irony is that we let the Democrats get away with the ultimate lie. They are perpetrating that they still champion the working men and women of America. Now I have to tell you, I'm incensed by that. That's me, that's my wife, that's my brother, my sister, my children, your family, your friends. Those liberal progressive policies have failed America, and yet we let them get by with defending the working men and women of America. It's got to stop, and it's got to stop right now. But we have a second part of the crisis. This is of our own making. In the United States Senate today, there are 36 United States senators who've been in elected office of one form or another for more than 30 years. Worse than that, there are 60 United States senators. These are well-meaning, well-intentioned, very capable men and women who I do have respect for. But we have 60 United States senators today in this Congress who've been in elected office for more than 20 years. Now that's the rise of the career politician. That's not what the founders had in mind. Read all the letters, all the things that they said. They had the citizen legislator in mind, somebody that would come and do their bidding and then go home. Today, my mission in life is to call this crisis out, and I see the crisis in 3 forms. The first form is we absolutely have a constitutional crisis. This is not a stump speech. Our Constitution is being trampled upon today by a liberal administration that does not respect what our founding fathers did. This president has figured out how to run the country and set the direction for the next 50 years without Congress by using executive orders, illegal executive orders, unconstitutional executive orders, and regulatory mandate. He is absolutely running our country without Congress. That's not what the founders had in mind. We simply have to get back to what our founding mothers and our founding fathers had in mind. And that is economic opportunity, fiscal responsibility, limited government, and individual liberty. The second is we have a global security crisis. Absolutely. I've made 3 trips now abroad. I've met with our men and women. I have to tell you today, the best, and I mean the very best of America, is in uniform today representing you and me and fighting for our freedom every day around the world. But we have 3 threats today. We have the rise of traditional rivals, Russia and China. And today, I just got back from Asia. I met with the ACCOM, the Pacific commander, who explained to us that we're about at parity in terms of military capability in the Pacific. Now, I have to tell you, that's a very disconcerting place to be with China's rambunctiousness right now. The second is of our own making, our own intransigence. In 2011, this administration, against all military advice, withdrew most of our troops out of Iraq prematurely and created a vacuum into which ISIS grew. And now we're forced with a decision of dealing with ISIS now today over there, or eventually dealing with the repercussions over here later. We need a strategy in the Middle East. We need a global strategy. The third area is we're on the cusp, ladies and gentlemen, of facing a nuclear Iran. And this administration told us originally that the purpose of these Iran negotiations, the nuclear negotiations, were to preclude Iran from ever getting a nuclear bomb. And yet the president himself said that in years 13, 14, and 15, the breakout time, even with this deal, is down to 0. I've been very measured in this, but this deal will not preclude Iran from becoming a nuclear weapon state. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot have Iran become a nuclear weapon state. Not now, not in 10 years, not ever. The problem with our foreign policy is we don't have a foreign policy. To have a strong foreign policy, you have to have a strong defense. But today, because of this administration's intransigence, we're about to have the smallest army since World War II, the smallest Navy since World War I, and the smallest Air Force ever, at a very time when we face more systemic challenges and more asymmetric challenges than any time in my lifetime. This is the most dangerous time in my lifetime, and it's of our own making in many places. The problem is, to have a strong military, you have to have a strong economy. In the last 6 years, this president, after telling us he was going to cut the debt in half, and by the way, there are no innocent players when it comes to our debt. Both sides are guilty. But in the last 6 years, we have spent $21.5 trillion running our federal government. Now, I can't even relate to that. That's so much. I can't even relate to what 21 trillion looks like. What I can relate to is the fact in the last 6 years of that 21 trillion, we've borrowed $8 trillion. That means that every plane, every boat, every tank that we've sent to defend our country and to support our men and women in uniform was borrowed. It's so bad that today it threatens our ability to back up our agreements with other countries. One of those is Taiwan. We have an agreement with Taiwan that says that if Taiwan is invaded by China, we have to go to Taiwan and defend Taiwan against China. Well, to do that, we have to go to China and borrow the money to go to Taiwan and defend Taiwan against China. Now, I know that's absurd, but that's where we are. Why do you think Putin has gone into Crimea? Why do you think he's in the Ukraine? Why do you think China is being so bold in the South China Sea? We've created an atmosphere where our friends don't trust us and our enemies don't fear us. and we've got to change that. Admiral Mullen, a former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, once said that our own federal debt is the greatest threat to our national security. I agree with him. That's what pulled me into this. We have $18 trillion of debt. We know that today. We're so far past the tipping point of this being a crisis. This is what called me into this. This is my mission in life right now, is to go around the country and make sure that in this presidential debate for the next leader of the free world, that somehow we get these people to deal with this issue. I've been in Congress 7 months, in the United States Senate. We passed a budget, but we haven't done one thing that really gets at this crisis. Today, how many of you remember double-digit inflation, double-digit interest rates? A few of us? Yeah. I don't want to go back there. But if interest rates today were just 5.5%, our 30-year historic average, we would already be paying $1 trillion of interest alone on this debt. That's twice what we spend on the military. That's twice what we spend on the discretionary spending. It's not possible. It's not manageable. The next part is even worse. We have $18 trillion of future unfunded liabilities coming at us like a freight train, primarily in Social Security and Medicare responsibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, Medicare and Social Security are already bankrupt. Their trust funds absolutely go to zero in a very short period of time, and we've got to save those. But we've got to get started in it right now. The solution to this is not complicated. First of all, we have to break the gridlock that both parties are responsible for in Washington. One side wants tax increase, the next side wants spending cuts, and we have gridlock for a generation. My answer is this. We have an $18 trillion economy. Let's get the economy going again. Put people back to work. That's the solution to our debt crisis, and the sooner we get started, the easier it's going to be. There are three things that I think we can do very simply. You're going to hear these in different versions from these candidates the next 2 days. But we've got to focus on the difference between the Democratic, liberal, progressive approach and the one that makes sense, and that is this. We have finally got to change the way we fund our federal government. In my first week, I put a bill in that would move us to a fair tax system, and I want to fight and fight and fight until we finally get to an active debate to get rid of the IRS. The second thing is we've got to change the career politician. In my first week in office, I put a term limit bill that would bring term limits finally and once and for all in the United States Senate. It'll take time to debate the fair tax. In the meantime, we have the highest corporate tax rate in the world, and we're losing corporations because of it. We're the only country left that has a repatriation tax on U.S. profits overseas. These are things we could do tonight that would bring trillions of dollars back into our economy and get it stimulated, get it going. Tell me why, with $4.5 trillion from the Federal Reserve put into our economy, why is this economy not going? Because this government, this administration, through regulators, the fourth arm of government that they've created, are choking the very life out of our economy. That's why it's not growing right now. Somebody said the other day, well, what's the priority? Which one of these agencies would you go after? I said, hey, pick an acronym. It doesn't matter which one. Pick an acronym and go after it. CFPB, IRS, EPA, it doesn't matter. Go after it. The third thing we have to do to get this economy going, look, I'm a business guy, and there are only a few of us in the United States Senate, and I'm screaming bloody murder about how to get this economy going because I see so clearly it's the way forward. If you want prosperity, if you want freedom, you can't have democracy without capitalism. I don't believe. The last way you get this economy going, and you're going to hear this over and over in different ways, we're already energy independent, we just don't use it. It's our own fault. The liberal left, the progressives, have convinced us that we're killing the planet. Well, let's find a balance. Let's find the answer. But in the meantime, let's don't kill our economy. If we kill the economy, we're not going to have any ability to influence the rest of the world or defend freedom or do the other things that we're responsible for doing. We need common sense solutions, balanced budget, get the economy going. You're going to hear this in spades. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can probably tell, I don't have a peace about where we are as a country, and you don't either. That's why you're here. Look, I'm a Christian. I don't wear my faith on my sleeve, but I think there's truth to be sold. And in full respect of all faiths, the Christian Bible says that be anxious for nothing, but through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. That's where we are. If you don't have a peace, pray about it. Give thanks for where we are, and let's get going again. My wife and I have been very blessed with 3 grandsons. It's a great time of life. It probably justifies having children in the first place, honestly. But we have 3 grandsons, and they're great. The oldest one's 4 years old, and they have figured out how to FaceTime, and they love FaceTiming me. They call me D2. And one of them 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago called me. I was in a meeting getting ready to go on a hearing, and I'm busy, I'm distracted, I got everybody in the room, and he calls me. These little guys have figured it out pretty much. They can call me anytime, and I'm going to take their call. Well, this guy calls me up, and he says, D2, I wub you. Now, guys, they know how to reach in and just grab your heart, right? But it reminded me why I'm doing this. It reminded me why you're doing this. I do not want to be a member of the first generation in American history that has to tell my kids and grandkids that I'm leaving them an America that's worse off than my dad left me. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. Ronald Reagan once said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We don't pass it down in the bloodstream. It has to be fought for, protected, and passed down so they can do the same. Or one day, in our sunset years, we'll be sitting around telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in America when women and men were free. Not on my watch. Not on your watch. We can do this. Together we can get our country back. Together we can create a new beginning to make sure that the American dream is alive for our kids and grandkids. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for being here. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. Thank you.